Hello, I'm Babu Gogineni. Thank you for joining me in this brief overview about superstition, belief, and a bit of humanism in India. India is an ancient civilization, one of the great civilizations of human history, but it's a young country. This year, we celebrate 75 years of India's independence and much less of its time as a republic, since when we had a constitution. Uniquely for the world's constitutions, India's constitution in its Article 51AH, which is the fundamental duties of all Indians, very clearly exhorts and enjoins all citizens to develop humanism, not of course what we mean by humanism in the humanist movement, but also scientific temper and also the spirit of social reform. Why did we need to have that particular thing put in the Indian Constitution? Why should India's Constitution tell her citizens that it is the duty of every citizen to promote scientific temper? Now, that's because the country really is a living museum of superstitions, ancient, modern. They just grow by accretion. Nothing gets discarded, but more things keep getting added. Now, India is 1.4 billion people. India is nearly 1 billion Hindus. And India has more Muslims than there are in all of the Islamic Middle East. So we are talking big numbers. We're talking 200 million, 250 million people, and so on. So we're talking big numbers and we're talking big problems as well. Now, between the year 2000 and 2016, according to the National Crime Records Bureau statistics, 2,500 women were killed by villagers, which means they would have been chased, captured, tortured, and killed in various cruel ways on suspicion that they were practicing witchcraft. Now, this is the number of women. Usually, as many men as women are killed in this ritualistic torture and murder. The magical concept of the universe, which could mean a talisman, which could mean a colored stone in your ring. It could mean changing the spelling of your name so that according to what they call numerology, you might get better luck in life. Now, how an Indian name can be corrected through an English spelling being changed, I don't know. But people are not thinking. They have very simply the magical concept of the universe. So in many rural areas, outside their homes, are pieces of cut lime and some chili and maybe some turmeric, ingredients that really make a good biryani. But if you find these outside your house, that means you have been the target of someone who wants you dead or who wants you harmed. That's black magic. And the only way to address that would be to go to a black magic man to identify who may have wanted you harmed. Now, that may mean paying the black magic man to light a fire, and as the wind blows, whichever direction the smoke is pointing to, there might be a childhood quarrel that you had with someone or a recent dispute you had with someone living there. That guy is now your target. But instead of doing black magic on them, which would have been all right, you now will identify the person and go and attack and kill. The number would be roughly 5,000 people killed like that. There are several witchcraft murders that I and my colleagues have been able to prevent because we set up some early warning signs in villages. And there are times when we went a bit late. There are times when my colleagues were also tied up in the village and they wanted to kill these people too because they were trying to help the suspected witches and sorcerers. So this is the story of serious superstition. I am not thinking of the nearly 3 billion rupees worth business that is being done in the name of astrology, in the name of palmistry, more money to be counted there, in the name of talismans and colored stones. These are the remedies to everyday problems of life that are advertised on television from 4 to 6 nearly every day in the afternoon. And at 7 o'clock, they call rationalists like me. And the television hosts ask us, why do you think superstitions are so rampant in the country? That's their business model. That's the social atmosphere in which we rationalists and fellow humans, religious people, live in the country. It is a very, very discouraging situation. Now, as I said, there are so many people who are killed, so many who are attacked, and there are so many who have not yet been killed, who escaped. Some of the largest displacements of people, not well documented, but at least once counted by a UN estimate for people around the world, is tens of millions of people in Papua New Guinea, in Haiti, in all of Africa, and in many parts of Asia, including India and Nepal, where people have fled their homes because they have been named as witches and sorcerers, and that is a death sentence. So people escape. Now, there are other occasions when people leave their homes. For example, not one example, many of them. Someone sights a ghost in a village, and then the village evacuates. Mind you, this is peacetime. There has been no natural calamity, no famine, no flood, no fire. It's just that someone suspects that the village is haunted. In a country where 30% of the people do not have proper housing, a village with people living in houses is evacuated. Children stop going to school, men and women stop working because they want to save their lives. They want to be away from the ghosts. The remedy to that is animal sacrifice and sometimes human sacrifice. It's not widely reported, but human sacrifice is not uncommon, though it's nowhere near the frightening levels 30 years or 40 years ago. As I said, sometimes we manage to go to the village, to the place with the police before it happens, but it's not always the case. Now, belief, most religious belief is really superstition, but it damages you more when it is linked with the magical concept of the universe. Now, the Constitution says to us, Indians, that we should fight against superstition, that we should improve scientific knowledge. People who do that, people who listen to the exhortation of the Indian Constitution, the rationalists, the humanists, the science popularizers, very often they are termed anti-national. They're called anti-national because the idea of nation and belief, religious belief, are linked up in the new enthusiasm of the extreme right wing. There are laws in the Indian Penal Code which protect the religious people from blaspheming of their gods, as if the gods cannot protect themselves. Then a criticism of religion might create unrest in society. Therefore, society should be protected. A critical evaluation of the religious texts, a debunking of a claim of miracles can, not always, but can very often lead you to being charged. To start with, someone to file a police complaint against you, sometimes for the police to investigate and conclude that indeed you have been committing crime, and then charge you with the crime. The crime could be, as I said, the equivalent of blasphemy. It is called hurting the religious sentiments of sections of society. So that's Article 295A. There are perfectly legitimate laws which stop people from going and playing havoc or disturbing a prayer at a place of prayer in a temple, a mosque. I'm not talking that. If you were to tweet, write on Facebook, or write a long essay, or write a book, then people might say that you have been hurting their religious sentiments. So it's not disturbing somebody in the act of prayer. It's simply you expressing your thoughts. Because all free expression is subject to public order and morality. Also, in a country with 1 billion Hindus, 250 million Muslims, or 200 million Muslims, and 3% of India is Christian, all people have to be careful not to provoke people of other religions, not to create unrest in society. And of course, when you do these things, you have conspired to do it. So under Indian Penal Code, Section 120 for conspiracy, 153A for creating disturbance in society, creating unrest amongst classes of people in society, and then hurting the religious sentiments of people by 295A. So the police can charge you with these crimes. And then, of course, if nation and belief are the same, when you do something, when you say something against belief, then you've done something against the nation, and therefore you are an anti-national. Usually the anti-national for the Hindus is someone funded by the Muslims and the rich Christians who live abroad, the evangelical Christians who come to India and perform miracles and make the blind see and the deaf hear and the dumb speak. So the rationalists are now categorized into anti-nationals funded by foreign religions. Foreign religions, even if Christianity came to India much before it reached Europe, even before Islam came to parts of India, much before it started its conquering zeal with the sword. But that's about history. But who wants history when mythology is so available? Mythology tells us that between India and Sri Lanka, now in a great crisis, there was a bridge built by Lord Rama, an avatar of Lord Vishnu, a human incarnation of the god, who, along with a troop of talking monkeys, built a bridge connecting India and Sri Lanka, on which they walked to go and rescue the kidnapped consort of Lord Rama. Now, to build a seaway between the two countries, some dredging needs to be done. But of course, dredging will not be allowed because that's a sacred bridge. And therefore, now you have to go around 400 kilometers for each naval journey, because those 30 kilometers which have sand, and it's a sand reach, if that were to be dredged, then you would save so much. But no, you can't allow modern developments interfere with your beliefs that everything in mythology is really history. And therefore, national energies are spent looking into, like Noah's Ark was looked for, and I think National Geographic, after ownership changed to the right-wingers, seems to indicate that they have found Noah's Ark and so on. There are other things to find in India, and they do that. And then there is a belief, superstitious belief, that ancient India already knew everything that modern science is still looking for. All you have to do is open the Vedas and find in them verses in ancient Sanskrit, which you can interpret in modern language, to say that here is quantum theory. And there, that is where Newton copied his ideas about gravitation from. And the Prime Minister of the country, at the inauguration of a modern hospital, reminded everyone in the country and those watching and listening, was it not the case of Lord Shiva, who decapitated a child, and when the child's mother was in distress, went and got, well, he saw an elephant lying down, sleeping somewhere. He chopped off the head of the elephant, brought the head and transplanted it on the cadaver of the decapitated, the trunk of the boy, and gave life to the child, now with a child's body and an elephant's head. And the Prime Minister said, this is the finest example as proof of the existence of the knowledge of plastic surgery already in ancient India. And of course, what did the Wright brothers do anew, which 3,000 years ago already was not explained and probably practiced by the seer Bharadwaja. It doesn't matter that the description of aviation as it is in Bharadwaja's writings leads to a pear-shaped body with bird's wings to the side. Good imagination, but understood as science today. Now, what is wrong with that? Why is it a problem to think that ancient people already knew what we know now? The problem is, because if everything was already known and is inscribed and preserved in the holy books got to us by revelation, then why should we even study modern science? We just have to go back to the ancient books, learn a bit of Sanskrit, and focus our energies into that. Universities have started more than they have, let's say 15 years ago, introducing courses in geomancy, Vastu or Feng Shui, in astrology. These are arts degrees which are used by those who finish those studies as professional qualifications, and they set up business. Helpfully, there are now witchcraft courses in a couple of universities, and it will spread. It will spread, and the continued cretinization of Indian society, where there is 30% illiteracy, and 30% illiteracy of 1.4 billion people is more than the combined populations of Spain, France, Greece, Italy, the United Kingdom, and Germany. So many people illiterate, but access to television, and some of them literate, of the remaining, able to read WhatsApp messages, short lies that come to the recipients. India being the largest consumer of mobile phone internet and consumers of social media. We are talking 400 million users of Facebook and similar numbers, I think, of WhatsApp. These being the vehicles for spreading ancient superstition. Now, because everything is already in the Vedas, because there's no need to learn new things, and the Prime Minister already told us that this is all ancient knowledge, it brings a kind of reluctance in the nation to explore things, to find out the truth about things. And when you do not have the interest to know the truth, you will also not have the honesty to tell it. Now, when the coronavirus was first identified in China, 2019, towards the end of the year, and already the WHO made its announcements in January, the manufacturer of one of the largest manufacturer of vaccines in India, Shanta Biotech, its founder and the company's chief, went on to YouTube, a channel, and said, those people eat things that we don't eat. In India, there are special vibrations, and that will protect us. People throughout the country said, the Chinese eat bats and tadpoles and frogs, and we don't do that. We don't even eat beef. Why will we get this virus? Just like they said, India had special powers and AIDS would do nothing to India. Scientists, serious scientists, many of them humanists, were warning the government of India, and the government of India and the others in society said, no, that's not an Indian problem. That's for the decadent West with all their fornication and their extramarital affairs and so on and so forth. It's nothing that will affect a morally correct nation like India. And India happened to be one of the largest victims of AIDS. At the end of the pandemic, we count the numbers and the humanists are not surprised. Now, as the pandemic was progressing in the country, people were told, like they were told in Babylonia 4,500 years ago, that when there was an epidemic of any kind, you had to go with your pots and pans and clay things and bang them in the street and throw them down. And then whatever was causing the illness would die. The same thing was tried in 2020 in India. People came, this is the metal age, no longer the time of the ancients. So they had dishes that they could beat on and which would make noise. And then people knew words like vibration and ultrasound and sonic and so on. So they borrowed these words from modern science to say that by doing this, these vibrations will kill the virus. It's not it's not very ordinary people spreading this. India's biggest superstar in the Hindi language, Amitabh Bachchan, once a member of parliament, he was the one who came on and he said, bang your dishes and then your plates and pans, and together we will fight the virus. It was a national frenzy, a national frenzy. And then the power of the word. After all, if God said, let there be something, and it was there, wasn't the primal sound, Om, which created the universe? Is that not the sound that NASA scientists found out was emanating from the sun? Yeah, they believe that. They seek justification for every belief from NASA, who they claim employs 30% Indians in its workforce. Of course, not true, but who is bothered about the truth? That in this national frenzy, that the sound can help. A member of parliament, another deputy minister, along with the Chinese consul general, stood by the beach in Mumbai and chanted, "Go Corona, go, go Corona, go." This is a song meant to tell the coronavirus to behave itself so that it would leave the Holy Land. Now, there are obvious reasons why this did not work. The virus comes from China. Now, if you were to sing something in Indian English, how would the Chinese virus ever understand what you were saying? I mean, a more intelligent thing would have been to learn how to sing this in either Mandarin or Cantonese, but the wrong tactic was used, and the virus went nowhere. People, like in South Africa once, the president of the country prescribed, Thabo Mbeki, prescribed that lemon juice was a good remedy for AIDS. In India, uncontrolled, unregulated, and wild remedies were being proposed. Fenugreek, jaggery, ginger, holy basil, all these to be put in your food so that your immunity levels will go up. And some of the ministers of the government encouraging this. After all, the virus is Chinese, and what did the Westerners ever do? And we have ancient traditional medicine in the country. So let's deploy that against the virus. Cow urine has been used as a sanitizing solution. Cow urine has magical properties. If you don't try, you will never know. But the ones who've tried it, they've also sprayed it on people unsuspecting. What else can I tell you about how bad things have been in my country, which is 1/6 of humanity, which lost the direction that knowledge would give, which abjured and rejected the light that science can throw on life, living, and how we might make it better for people in the country and everywhere. Through false claims, through fake pride in the past. In a country where government announced 450,000 deaths because of corona, and which just last week, the WHO confirmed to be 4.7 million people dead because of coronavirus pandemic. The really damaging effects of superstition are those that damage life. They don't let you live peacefully, always in fear of a number, a lucky day, a charm, a colored stone, some lines on the hand. And things like this. Already, Indian society is divided along the lines of caste. That also is founded on superstition, on the superstition that humans are born from different parts of the Lord Creator. So the intelligent ones from the head, the powerful ones from the shoulders, the businessmen from the thighs, the workmen, the tradies from the feet. And then there are those who are the casteless, because they're not even human, the untouchable. The number of people treated as untouchables in the Indian subcontinent is of the order of 200 million people. There is affirmative action. Many have found limited succor, but definitely succor. Some protection from discrimination, from the atrocity of being treated as untouchables. Because of laws, not always well implemented, but the laws are in place. Unlike Nigeria, where unconnected with the Hindu religion, there is untouchability. You could be Osu, and you would be untouchable in Nigeria. There is a law there, but there's no prosecution either. India does better. Japan, Shinto Japan, after it adopted Buddhism, introduced untouchability for the butchers of the region. They did not stop eating meat, but the butchers became untouchable. And they have been around. And the Boraku people, the Burakumin, continue to be there in Japan, but Japan has no legislation. India has the law. India has a lot of prosecution of the violation of the rights of the untouchables, the Dalits, as some people prefer to call themselves, the marginalized, the vulnerable. So at a legislative level, in the Constitution, there have been attempts to make things better for humans living in India. But it's humans who have to implement the law. But with religious fanaticism, social backwardness, cultural backwardness in large sections of the population, inadequate appreciation of the values of equality, of human dignity, we find that things are lacking, wanting. When you don't have adequate appreciation of the values that keep civilization going, then you end up being high in the hunger index with malnourished children. Schools now in India, almost everywhere in the country, have a midday meal scheme where the school gives food to the child. Actually, one of the reasons why many children go to school is that at least they are fed there. Religious fundamentalism, religious prejudice against, taboos against food means that these children, undernourished, protein deprived, can't even have egg in their meals because the ones making these policies or implementing them have been told because of their caste upbringing that people of their caste cannot eat eggs or meat. Malnutrition is a big problem. Big superstition, huge problem. Indian children have stunted growth. Indians, male or female, even when they are able to afford it are very limited in their ability to eat nutritious, balanced diet. Because religion, ignorance, consequent superstition has created these hurdles. Because you believe that there are truths in ancient Indian thinking, you believe that astrology is more important than astronomy. Astrology is how you use astrology is what you use to understand the course of your life in the years ahead, and also what you use to choose and to confirm compatibility with others that you would consider for a life mate. So marriages are between horoscopes, not humans. It damages life, it humiliates people. Superstition has been doing it successfully in the country. I said to you that those who try to oppose this are often the victims of oppression, of aggressive response, sometimes of foolishness from the authorities. Almost every rationalist, every humanist, every science popularizer, not almost, every, who has been charged, they're all accused, a few are charged, and then the matter goes to court. No court of law has ever punished a rationalist or anti-superstition activist for what they did. In fact, a judge in the Karnataka state, he made a police inspector apologize in court for having prosecuted a person who was spreading signs, saying the Constitution says spread signs, and when that is done, how dare you punish this person? So the judges, mostly, there are some judges who've said foolish things, even while on the bench, but overall, they have been a protection. But when the mob takes over and the police, even if not colluding, do not consider it a priority, then great disasters are visited on the rationalists. Superstition doesn't simply hurt those who believe in it, but also those who do not believe in it and therefore fight against it. Dr. Narendra Dabholkar, a senior rationalist leader, 1,000 times more gentle than I and many of my colleagues, was gunned down by young people. He was in his late 60s because he called for a law which would outlaw not the belief in superstition, but those who run a business based on superstitious beliefs. Dr. Dabholkar is not the only one. Gauri Lankesh, a lady who fought against unexamined beliefs in society, gunned down. Professor Kalburgi, Vice Chancellor of a university, former retired Vice Chancellor, not even a humanist, but broadly a rationalist, killed. Dr. Govind Pansare, assassinated as well. I looked into the history of people who have been charged like this. Many of them happen to be those who hold secular views. They are not punished by the court, but in India, the process is the punishment. A case takes many, many years before it comes to resolution. And the riffraff who believe in rebirth, who believe in, the belief is not that of a riffraff nature, that would be of ignorance, but who have then weaponized the law to attack those who were spreading knowledge about these beliefs that are being held. They are not being controlled. So you can peddle cow urine and cow dung as remedies. Some people are now making a public display of consuming the fecal matter of cows as a sacred duty, as a medicine. There are new formulations that are being released based on cow urine. As I said, the cretinization of the country is continuing. The ones who are protesting happen to be persecuted, attacked, vilified as anti-national. And in a country where resurgent right-wing religious fundamentalism is taking over, it becomes an unsafe thing to espouse the cause of reason. That's where we are. The humanist colleagues that I work with are a source of great inspiration and courage for the civilizational values that we espouse. The ones who have rejected reason, compassion, solidarity of the human, those who have no longer any time for reasonableness and accommodation. They are surprisingly also the ones who are religious fundamentalists, fanatics, militant nationalists. All of these ideas, these stances, these beliefs are based on a superstitious understanding, inadequate knowledge of both the human and the universe. I hope you've got a glimpse of the great challenges that thousands of my colleagues in India are braving, not giving up. After Dabholkar was assassinated, they thought that the humanists would now keep quiet. The rationalists would do nothing. No. Within months of that assassination, there were meetings around the country, especially in the cities where right-wing fundamentalism is rampant, where the rationalists met together and declared a national day for atheism, for humanism, obviously against superstition. So the rationalists have not lost courage. They just find that the challenge has become bigger with the government, and it's not one political party. Government throughout the country has been in favor of protecting, condoning, or letting go all offenses if they are performed, committed in the name of religion or belief. That's where we are. Google the words rationalism, humanism, threats to rationalists. Join the humanist groups. In my name there is a Facebook group. My timeline on Facebook as that, and that will connect you to hundreds of rationalists in the country. Follow what is happening, and you will see that while there is much to despair because of the tremendous challenges we are facing, there's much to be inspired by when you see people who are fighting superstition and defending science, democracy, human rights. Thank you for your attention.